Hey everyone, it's Nikki. Welcome if you're new here and welcome back if you're returning. I have 6 DIYs for you today, and we're going to start with this Dollar Tree canvas and a piece of cardstock. I'm covering the entire canvas with a glue stick and then burnishing the cardstock right into that glue using my hands. And I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. It dries really quick. And once it's set, I'm going to sand the edges down with my finger sander and remove the excess paper. And I also did flip the canvas over as well. And, that really helps burnish everything down. Seems how the canvas has no structure to the back of it. And then I'm going to use these 3 wooden hearts that I picked up on Amazon in an assorted box of wood a few years ago. I'll see if I can find it and link it down below. And I painted all 3 with this chalk paint that I got at the Dollar General. It's supposed to be the color ivory, and although I have to say it reads more into a very soft blush pink to me than a true ivy. And then after that, I took this vintage style lace and wrapped it all around the sides of my canvas and also continued it to the front. But I apologize. I totally missed filming this step. You can see I added vintage lace to each heart and glued them diagonally to the front of my canvas and then added a little twine bow to the front. And they just kind of look like balloons floating in the sky. I just think it's so pretty. And here's the finished piece. I really loved how this turns out. It's soft, neutral, and not overwhelming at all. I like the simplicity of it. Sometimes those quieter pieces make just as much of a statement. For our next project, I'm using a Dollar Tree cutting board and one of their little crates. And we're going to glue the crate right onto the bottom of the cutting board using some Titebond Quick and Thick and just a dite of hot glue just to hold it there until the wood glue dries. But I'm also going to take my clamps and put one on each side and set it aside for about an hour. I want to make sure that this is glued nicely and it doesn't move around. Then I'm going to take my Cameos mold and my primitive mold, and they both have a few small hearts in them. And I'm also going to cast a few other things while I have my resin out, but I really want the small hearts on each of them. There's also a larger one. Like I said, I'm going to cast a few extras. And then I took the color Mineral by Waverly. It's a chalk paint and some water. I sped this up quite a bit, so I wanted like a wash, and that didn't work well with the bamboo cutting board. So I ended up mixing a little burnt umber in with that mineral chalk paint and got kind of like this purpley color. I don't know what you would call it, but I really like that. I didn't mix it fully and just kind of went in there with some water, as I mentioned, and blended that all over. I'd made sure to do the back as well, and all I needed for that was one coat. Then I took Waverly's ballet slipper and a little bit of Waverly's hazelnut and mixed those together, and then I added a little bit of ivory to it to get the color that I wanted. Then I also took the color ivory and painted the X's with that and painted my pink mixture to the hearts that I cast. And then once the hearts are dry, I'm going to dry brush some of that ivory to hit all the high points and just bring forward all the details in my hearts. And you can find these X's at Hobby Lobby. Then I took out my ruler. I tried to get perfect spacing or close to perfect. And at the end of the day, I just ended up eyeballing it, and I think that worked just fine. So once I figure out placement, I'm going to take my E6000 to adhere it. I wish I would have taken my Gorilla Glue gel, but I did not. I just don't really like E6000. I don't think it bonds as well as it's said to bond. I did have one fall off and had to re-glue it using my glue gel. And then I took this pretty lace and wrapped it all around the front of the crate just to kind of disguise the holes on the sides. And I use some Aleene's tacky glue for this because it dries nice and clear. And I really love this glue for just about anything. I'm going to run all along the front here, just trying to make sure it's tacked down really well. Then I took out these really pretty beads. They're like a soft pink. I have so many of these that I got at Goodwill, all different sizes and colors. And I just used a combination of hot glue and Aleene's to adhere that. Added this really pretty vintage style bow. I have so much of that I got at Goodwill too. I got a huge bundle of this baby's breath on Temu last year and cut a lot of it back really short and then filled the crate full of Spanish moss and then added my baby's breath. And that's it for this one. I think it's so cute. I love the colors. I'm going to have to remember to mix the mineral gray again with the burnt umber. I just love that combination. Let me know what you think of this one. All right, this video is part of a playlist, our monthly What Would You Make challenge, and it's hosted every month by Brenda from Rustic and Lace and Christine from Divine Designs. We have a guest host this month, and it's Craftastic, and I'll be sure to have these ladies linked down below as well as a playlist. All right, let's continue with our projects. All right, for our next project, I painted this MDF heart that I got at Hobby Lobby, the color Ivory by Waverly. I gave it 2 full coats and let it dry real well. And this is my 3rd coat. And we're going to go in with this paint inlay from IOD. This is from their Floriography inlay booklet. And I'm going to give it a nice spritz of water. Make sure to get the paint inside, not the back side with the grit on it. And I also like to add a little bit of that water over my wet paint. And so, make sure if you work with inlays that you take your time on this step and just make sure that you get your inlay pressed in nicely to the wet paint. We want to make sure we have good contact here. That way our image transfers over nicely. So you have a few seconds here just to make sure you lift and get your image on there. I wanted mine offset. I didn't want it right down the center of my heart. And also using my burnishing tool here to help press that inlay nicely. If you don't have a brayer, that's totally fine. You can just keep pressing the inlay down using a damp towel. It works just as well. The typography that you see here was actually part of the side of this image. I just trimmed it off and added it to the lower section of the heart. And I let this dry for a few hours. And you'll know when it's ready when the inlay turns completely opaque. If you still see any darker areas, it's not dry yet. Another little tip, if you touch it and it still feels cool to the touch, there's still moisture in there, so just leave it. Once it's fully dry, we're going to get our paper nice and wet again. And I'm also going to go in with that damp towel to remove some of that excess water while gently pressing it back down. And this is what's going to help loosen the paper and makes removing the inlay that much easier. And then once we start pulling that paper back, if you feel any resistance at all, just lay it back down, mist it again, and leave it for another few seconds. You don't want to rush the step. Pulling it too quickly can damage your inlay and your project. So just make sure you take your time here. It really makes all the difference. And this is the best part, the final reveal. This one transferred over beautifully, and I couldn't be happier with how this one turned out. I'm going to let my inlay dry fully, And then I'm going to seal in the entire piece with a clear coat and let that dry for about 30 minutes. It dries fairly quickly, which is always nice. And then after that, I added a hanger using some wired jute twine. This one came from Walmart. And to finish it off, I have a lot of extra touches. I draped this pretty lace in the upper right hand corner of the heart and used a little Aleene's tacky glue to adhere that. This piece has a lot of little details and layered elements, almost like a mixed media feel. And behind the pearls were like little metal pieces, I'm assuming whatever keeps the pearls in place. So I just added a little hot glue to the back of those areas and wrapped the lace around the side of my heart. I'm going to add some transfers from the Enchanted Grove by Redesign. This set is filled full of the prettiest roses and sweet little birds. I just think there's so much you can do with this one transfer booklet. And I'm going to let you watch, as a lot of this is repetitive, and just add a little bit of music and let you watch the process. Then I took out my texture stamp and I added this larger crackle. I end up covering this up later. I don't like it at all. I think it's just way too much for this project. I add the smaller crackle here, and that was the perfect addition. I've tried adding the larger crackle to projects before, and I don't know, I just don't think it suits anything that I make. Then I finished it off with some distress ink and I added a bow to it. I didn't realize that my typography on the bottom was crooked until I hung it up, but that's okay. I still love it. I'm so excited to finally be able to use these sprinkles that I found at Goodwill. They're Valentine's Day themed with 3 different colors, and some of them say love on them. And more of those hearts that we used in the first project, and some fast and final. And I'm going to use a butter knife that I use for like all my fake bakes and stuff. You definitely don't want to use one that you're going to use in your kitchen. So the key to get this to stick to my wooden hearts is to press it down along the edges, and then it just sticks perfectly. You could certainly break out the piping bag and get all fancy, but I just think these are so cute just the way they are. So I'm just going to smooth it out the best I can and just make sure the entire heart is covered, and then sprinkle on some of my faux sprinkles. And that's it for these. I think they turned out so sweet and they look adorable on any counter, tier tray, or on a side table. My husband always gets so tripped up when he sees my fake bakes because he loves goodies and he never can tell the difference. All right, on to our next project. If you've been watching my channel, you know I've been crafting with these thrifted hearts. So these have already been painted previously with the color Ivory by Waverly. And this lace I got on Temu, and I'm just trying to make sure that I don't waste any of it. So I'm going to use my Aleene's tacky glue and just decorate the upper right hand corner to look like the lace is just draping downward from the side. I don't know why, but I really love that look. And now I'm going to add this XOXO I had got in a bundle of Valentine's Day words at Hobby Lobby, and I had painted that previously with Ballet Slipper. And now I'm going to add a little bit of crackle to the side because you know how I love that vintage look. And I did add a little bit of distress ink along the sides. Not much, but I think this came out super cute, and I have it styled just on this easel right now. You can certainly hang it up, but let me know what you think of this one. All right, that same bundle of wood that I got for the hearts, this piece came in it, and we're just going to cover it up with this pretty pink cardstock, and of course using my glue stick. Then I'm going to burnish it real well, sand the sides down. I'm going to let it dry for a few minutes, and then I'm going to take out these cute little doilies I got on Temu. I got like a pack of 3 of them, and I'm going to add a little bit of Aleene's tacky glue to one side of it, and then flip it over and just burnish that down to the front of my little wooden piece here, and I'm using my brayer to help. Now I'm going to take one of these thrifted foam hearts and add a bunch of these thrifted half pearl beads and just cover the whole heart, and then we're going to begin layering. And I'm also going to add some other pearl beads to this. I'm essentially just trying to cover the whole heart and have it nice and layered. Let me know if you craft for Valentine's Day or if you decorate for it. I don't typically decorate or craft for it. Sometimes I do maybe a project or two, but for some reason this year when I went inside a Hobby Lobby, I just fell in love with all the decor. And so I ended up spending money I did not end up planning on spending, and I have been having such a fun time crafting and decorating. I actually put up a tree this year, and I also want to know what you think of this project. It's just something quick and easy to put together, but as I'm editing this, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking how much prettier it looks before adding so many pearl beads. I had wanted to cover the heart and not let the pink shine through, but I think it looks so much prettier that way. Then I tucked in some baby's breath here and there. And then added some hot glue to the back and set that right in the center of my doily. I added very little distress ink. I didn't want to get all crazy with this one, but I think this is super sweet, would look really cute in like a little girl's room maybe, or setting on a tier tray. I added some larger pearl beads into the corners, as you can see here. I wanted to have the option to hang this, so I used these little pearl beads to act as the hanger. And that's it for this cute little heart sign. Let me know what you think of this one. And here's a quick recap of everything that we made today. I really hope that you enjoyed all of these projects. And if you're new here, I would love you to subscribe. I'm working hard towards my goal of 2,000 subscribers, and your support truly means the world to me. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you who comes back each week to spend time with me. And don't forget to check out the playlist and our wonderful hosts. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Until the next one, bye.